Apparently, you're the guy with the best head in the business.
Pun intended.
Oh boy! I mean, you do have a beautiful head for sure.
So बॉम्बे आया फिर मतलब
Platform पे
प्लेटफॉर्म
सोया.
पे सोए और पेवमेंट पे सोए फुटपाथ पे सोए.
Yeah.
तो जावेद अख्तर said something very interesting. He says जो सब पे गुजरी वो हम पे भी गुजरी.
Right.
Right. So let's not. I mean, I don't want to say that the airline business is so difficult. Bhai, I'm like some God's child.
Yeah.
ऐसा नहीं है. All businesses are difficult. Like you said, I was 32 years old, and we have just had two babies, and one is about a year and a half, and one is 6 months old. And I've been a lawyer all my life. If I screw this up, then definitely my career as a manager is over, or a CEO or a business leader is over, businessman is over before it even started.
Right.
And nobody's going to hire me back as a lawyer either, So I walked away from that.
Co-founder of India's youngest airline, Akasa, former president of Indigo, founder Homage, board member Oyo, Fab India, Green Cell Mobility, investor in a bunch of startups. And I'm probably just halfway through the introduction of the guest we're rolling with on Rolling With The Boss today. So instead of trying to finish it, let's just go meet the man who's also been called the man with the best head in business, Aditya Ghosh.
Hi.
Good morning, Aditya.
Morning,
How are you?
morning. I'm good. Come on in.
Such a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Thanks for making the effort. Come.
Wonderful home, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, or I should say, this is as good as it gets.
No, it's home.
Right.
Come.
Please.
Take a seat.
All right. Your introduction took me such a long time. I mean, what do I start with? Former President Indigo, co-founder Akasa Air, there is Homage, then of course you're on board of Oyo, Green Mobility, and so many others. So I was like, okay, the intro is taking so long. The conversation's gonna be, of course, about all of those things, but we'll have it in a car which is waiting for us downstairs.
Sure. I have a explanation to that. The explanation is that when we were kids, you were told not to be distracted.
Right.
Now we call it diversified.
Right.
That's the only difference.
All right. So let's go.
Yeah,
have you expand on that in the car.
Thank you.
I spoke to a bunch of your former employees, people who worked with you, and some peers as well. And apparently, you're the guy with the best head in the business.
Pun intended.
Oh boy! I mean, you do have a beautiful head for sure.
So I have a theory on that, which I think I heard it from someone because I should credit it. It's not my line, but it's that God made a few perfect heads, and the rest He covered with hair.
Right. So in your case, well, we know. Absolutely. So there's a reason why so many people said the same thing to me.
Yeah, I hope it was for more reasons, but I'll take this one too.
I mean, you, like I said, you have a beautiful head for sure. Now that said, this is how your day usually starts? In the backseat of the car?
No.
Right.
Yeah, well, I drive myself a lot actually.
Yeah. Gurgaon traffic is not a problem?
I've grown up in Delhi and I've driven all over India. So, I mean, yes, you complain because you get stuck in traffic going into Delhi, coming from Delhi in the mornings. But surprisingly, I actually drive myself quite a bit.
So a petrol head, or do you like electric cars?
I drive a petrol car at the moment.
Okay.
But yeah, I would hope to kind of graduate to an electric car. Yeah.
Right.
And I know I've been kind of eyeing this one.
Right. And you did a bit of a test drive. All right. Yeah. So you have the steering at your disposal now.
Yeah,
and this is the first time we're doing this, by the way.
I love driving. So thanks for letting me drive, actually.
What do you think of the car? It's an electric car.
Yeah, it's super smooth, more than anything else. These cars are one, they're smooth and they drive really well and they're quiet. So yeah, thank you. And I've never driven the electric version of this car, so
It's a great car, right?
It is a great car, yeah.
Right. And your love for driving, where does that come from? Is it from childhood days because you used to travel a lot?
Actually, we didn't have a car when we were growing up. I bought my first car, which was a second-hand Maruti 800, when I was 24 years old.
Okay.
So I
This
think
is right out,
yeah,
when you're done with your law.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's correct. And therefore, I think it comes from that not having it.
Yeah.
I think that and yeah, and but of course, like you said, the travel piece is something that is ingrained.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that I get so much time to or the opportunity, I think, to go out on like sort of long road trips. I've done a few. I like doing them, but I wish I could do more. But it just takes a lot of time. But roads have improved a lot.
Yeah.
We were talking about Rishikesh as a place where I like to go to, which from Gurgaon on a lucky day, you can leave Gurgaon and reach Rishikesh in 3.5 to 4 hours.
Right.
And I don't know if you ever noticed, but there is one traffic light between Gurgaon and Rishikesh.
Okay.
There are tolls, but
Yeah.
there is only one traffic light, which is the Motiba crossing.
Motiba crossing. Right.
There is no traffic light. That is amazing, isn't it?
Uninterrupted ride all the way to the mountains.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually we don't do this, but since you wanted to drive,
Yeah.
you did drive. I
Yeah.
mean, rolling with the boss, so whatever the boss says.
Yeah, I wanted to drive all through, but yeah, but I'm sure you have insurance issues as well.
Well, we wanted you to sort of, relax in the
Thank you.
backseat a
No,
bit.
Thank you. Well, thank you for letting me drive. Yeah.
That said, your LinkedIn page, the introduction that I have for you in the show, all of those things are so long. I mean, the man has literally done everything, co-founded companies, has been the president of one of the biggest airlines. Keeping all of those things in mind, how did you manage to do all of those things? Where do you get the time?
Well, I think we always find time for things that we think are important to us, right? So one is that. And I definitely don't want to end my life looking back saying, oh, I wish I had done that, right? I don't want that regret. But it's been a journey. It's been a journey because, like I was joking with you when you walked in at home, when you're growing up, especially when you're growing up in India and around the time that I was, people would say, don't get distracted, pick one thing and do that really well. Right. Which of course there's a lot of wisdom to it, but the corollary to that was that basically don't have any other interests, and it's and for me that has always been a struggle. Like when I was in school, I was interested in theater, I was interested in public speaking, and a little bit of sport, and a bunch of different things. In college, the same, and throughout work life, the same. So whether it's music or theater or public speaking or reading or trekking or whatever it is, I'm ever curious about things.
So let me break it up.
Yeah.
Let's start probably after your first job.
Okay.
You were a lawyer.
Yeah.
I mean, qualified. You went to the law faculty, Delhi University, and you are working as a lawyer.
Yeah.
And then one fine day, you decide to leave all of that behind. A career which was going very well. You were doing very well. You decide to join an airline. How did that happen? That switch.
Well, you have to rewind the clock a little bit more.
Sure.
To show that there is a pattern to this.
Right.
I don't know if it's a healthy pattern or not, but there's a pattern to it.
Right.
In the sense that I was a science student in class 11 and 12. I did history in my undergrad. Preparing for the business schools, got through a couple of business schools, but didn't take that, switched to law, from law to taking an in-house job, and then of course the airline business and a bunch of other things that have happened ever since.
Right.
So there seems to be a pattern. Of moving from one thing to another, which goes back to that, sort of desire to be ever curious.
Right.
But the switch happened actually, as you call it, is because I became the in-house general counsel of the parent company of Indigo,
Yeah.
right? And just serendipity, good fortune, that when Rahul Bhatia and Rakesh Jhunjhunwala when Rahul and Rakesh were thinking about the airline, or even in the very, very, like literally that proverbial cocktail napkin stage.
Yeah.
I happened to be there, and they tasked me a few things, including like let's apply for the license of an airline, to then getting involved in ordering the first 100 airplanes with Rahul and Rakesh, to then one day then getting onto the board, and just the whole sort of journey of building something brick by brick. Of course, nothing is ever done by one person,
Right.
and I was just fortunate to be in that early band of
There must have been a lot of hustle involved, because I mean, there must have been plenty of things that you learned from scratch. But aviation back then and remains a very difficult industry. And
yeah, so Abhishek, before I answer that, one quick thing that I want to interject is that, and I've thought about this for a while.
yeah,
I'm not a fan of the word hustle.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of the word agility.
right.
Right. To me, hustle feels like you're standing on this corner of a road and you're trying to hustle and get some money out of people and make a quick buck.
Right.
Right.
Has a negative
And-
connotation
Yeah,
to it.
and it's like a band-aid solution to things.
Sure.
Agility, on the other hand, is you're playing the same game.
Yeah.
The playing field changes, the opponents change, and so on and so forth, and you have to re-strategize. You have to kind of up your game. You have to make sure we understand who you're competing against,
Sure.
and really constantly evolve.
Right.
So I think agility is super important as opposed to the hustle. I know
Right.
it. I know these days, as I
mean,
as
the word has just become popular, and it's
one is
everywhere.
yeah, and it's like kind of a badge of honor that I hustle. I think the badge of honor is to say that I'm agile.
Right.
Now, the airline business is hard. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think I must have the humility to say, Javed Akhtar in an interview once said कि when in some context people were romanticizing कि वो struggle, भाई मतलब मैं बॉम्बे आया, फिर मतलब
Platform
पे सोए और pavement पे सोए, footpath पे सोए.
Yeah.
तो जावेद अख्तर said something very, very interesting. He says, जो सब पे गुजरी वो हम पे भी गुजरी.
Right.
Right. So let's not. I mean, I don't want to say that the airline business is so difficult. Bhai, I'm like some God's child.
Yeah.
ऐसा नहीं है. All businesses are difficult. This one is particularly complex because of the number of things that are constantly changing and outside your control.
Yeah.
But you know what? I also think that when you put your heart and soul into something and you kind of approach it with an honesty of purpose, and you really become a student. And I'm not saying this because it's like a cool thing to say.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, Abhishek, even today, every day I go into work, and when I come back in the evening, there'll be something new that I have learned which I had no idea about in the morning.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, it could be big and small.
Yeah.
Like, it does not, every day you're learning, some, like, you're
Yeah.
splitting the atom.
Yeah.
But there'll be something new. If you keep your eyes and ears open, there'll be something new.
Yeah.
And I think that learning journey helps you. So,
Right.
to specifically answer your question, I was blessed to have colleagues around me, even my direct reports, all of whom had many more number of years in the airline business. So I think firstly I'm grateful to them that they accepted my leadership, yes, but also they took the time and the effort and allowed that ability for me to learn from them, and then we did it together.
But you were barely on the other side of 30, right? You were very young.
I was 32, yeah.
So taking such a huge risk with your career must have required you to know yourself very well. That kind of self-awareness, or was it naivete? What would you call it? And how did it happen?
Well, there's no denying the fact that there is, I definitely felt a lot of doubt, self-doubt, that, whether I'm the right person for this or not, whether this is going to be one big mistake. Mistake not because of anything else, but just mistake in the sense that, you could lose everything, right? I mean, think of it this way, that I was, like you said, I was 32 years old, and we have just had two babies, and one is about a year and a half and one is 6 months old. And I've been a lawyer all my life. Now, and kind of taking on what is a very, very volatile business, right? It's a very risky, volatile business. So there were several things going in through my mind. Firstly, if I screw up, there are a lot of people whose jobs are at stake, and the capital of the investors and shareholders. The second is that if I screw this up, then definitely my career as a manager is over, or a CEO or a business leader is over, businessman is over before it even started, and nobody's going to hire me back as a lawyer either. So I walked away from that profession. And the third is that, am I getting this role because I just happen to be here, by accident or fate, or is there something in me that I can make it happen? So therefore, even if I was not losing capital, right, I was definitely betting my entire life and my entire career on it, right. So that definitely, sometimes when you look at it from the outside, you're like, somebody might say, and one of my friends at that time said that, it looked just fantastic on your resume, and you're getting this opportunity to lead an airline at the age of 32, 33. But be that as may, I kind of resisted it for more than a couple of months. So
you didn't.
Yeah, it's not like I
take
jumped
the
at it
offer right away.
like, oh wow, this is what I. No, actually it was quite the opposite, and I say that because for two reasons. One, if many other people who are faced with similar choices, whether they are young or older, it's perfectly okay to have that self-doubt, and it's perfectly okay to not know everything and not have everything mapped out. It's perfectly okay to be unsure whether this is what's going to be my golden ticket, so to speak. And the second is that, please remember that, and I'm talking to anybody who's listening, please remember that you are indeed betting everything.
Akasa has just completed its 1 year. I mean, it's the youngest.
Youngest.
So congratulations.
Thank you, and that's on behalf of Vinay and the other co-founders and the entire team. Yes, thank you so much.
So in this 1 year, what do you think the airline has got right, and what do you think are some key missing pieces? Where is it headed?
I think, look, it's been a fantastic first year, very, very strong start, but also that means that we have a 20-year journey ahead of us. You spoke with, you had a chat with Ritesh for the first episode.
Yes.
And Ritesh often says, and he, and of course, as you know, I've known and worked with Ritesh for a long period of time. Ritesh always says, right, every overnight success is a 10-year journey.
Yes.
And so it is going to be for Akasa as well.
What kind of airline do you want Akasa to come across as? I mean, Kingfisher was a certain
we
kind
want
of
to be
an
the
airline.
most trusted airline, the most loved airline. And when you take those two words, there are lots of ingredients that go into it, right? Why would you trust an airline? You would trust an airline if it is reliable. You would trust an airline if it is safe. You would trust an airline if you know that they're not going to shock you and
with some
cheat
hidden
you.
charges.
Correct.
Yeah.
Why would an airline be the most loved airline? Because you relate to it. It's like you relate to your mother, you relate to your family, you relate. So when you go in and you feel like I feel comfortable here, I feel warmth and I feel friendliness.
What do you think of the transformation that India's aviation sector is currently sort of undergoing? I mean, the bunch of planes which have been ordered by everybody. Akasa is also in the process of ordering a few planes. How many?
It's a triple-digit order.
Right.
I won't give you the exact number, but yes, we ordered 72 airplanes to begin with. We added another 4 to it, and we are going to announce very shortly another triple-digit order, which is pretty cool, in some ways.
Absolutely.
In less than a year and a half of operations. This is your third order.
And expanding routes as well.
Expanding routes. We were in 16 cities for a while. We're going to open up Port Blair as our 17th city. And all of this in 15, 16 months.
Great choice, because of course, Andaman happens to be like absolutely beautiful.
Oh, I wear a flipper over here, which signifies my which I got at the end of my license,
Okay.
open water, advanced open water license as a
Right.
scuba diver, and that was
Havelock?
Havelock, yeah, Havelock and Neil.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean,
that's not the reason why we are flying to Port Blair. We are flying to Port Blair because it makes sense. I wasn't part of that decision in a network planning team.
yes.
But having said
Well,
that, I'm very happy.
I'd definitely take that Akasa flight because Andamans happens to be one of my favorite places.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
Andamans
It
and
is-
then Leh.
It is special.
Great place.
Yeah.
In my conversation with Ritesh, he is from Odisha.
Yes.
He claimed rasagullas for the Odiyas. You're a
Oh.
Bengali. You're a Bengali. What are your thoughts about this?
I think I'm going to Ritesh on that one.
So have I given you material for the next board meeting? The topic of discussion?
Definitely a few WhatsApp messages. Look, Rasgulla was invented in Calcutta, and so that's a historical fact. Now,
Okay.
having said that,
Historical fact.
Having said
Okay.
that, I think Odisha is great food.
Yeah.
So whenever I go to Bhubaneswar, you
Yeah.
know, they sell these dahi bhallas,
Uh-huh.
right, which
Yeah.
are very unique. They come out of these metal canisters on cycles.
Okay.
Okay, and it's not meetha.
Okay.
It is like amazing. You have to try it in Bhubaneswar.
Okay.
And last time Ritesh and I spent time
Uh-huh.
in Puri,
Okay.
right? I actually have a photograph of he and me sitting on the beach, both in kurta pajama,
Uh-huh.
because it was his brother's wedding. We
Okay.
have now run away from the wedding.
Uh-huh.
Both of us are sitting on the beach having chai.
This is Puri beach.
Puri beach.
Yes.
Not too far from the temple.
Yeah.
Having chai and some bhel puri and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So Ritesh actually can be a foodie, except he's vegetarian.
Yeah.
He's a pure vegetarian.
Yeah.
So, and he loves Indian food in any part of the world.
Yeah.
I'm more experimental.
Right.
But he'll be in San Francisco and having idli for breakfast. You know. So.
Okay.
But the rasgulla, I'll claim it.
Okay.
Back.
You'll claim it back
I'll
for
bring it
Bengalis.
back.
Great. So this love for food.
Comes from my mother, I think. The love for food comes from my father. The appreciation for good food comes from my mother. I try my hand at cooking every once in a while a little bit, but my brother's really got that.
So what's that
from
one
my-
dish that you can sort of, cook? I mean, in your opinion, the best.
That me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a simple one. Apple pie.
Okay.
Apple pie. Apple pie, and that I can cook.
And this
I can bake.
review has come from your kids as well.
From my daughter to some extent,
Uh-huh.
a lot of friends,
Are
and
they
my
foodies?
mother.
Okay.
Which is kind of
No,
the
no,
most,
yeah, exactly.
kind of the most important judge in jury.
That's probably the biggest award. Now, you have been a Delhi boy.
Yes,
Pretty much.
yes, actually, yeah.
Yeah. So would you describe yourself as a quintessential Delhi boy?
I don't know what that
With
means.
all these.
I don't know
Really?
what that means.
Okay.
But-
I mean, let me give you some hints.
Yes.
It does come with a few stereotypes attached with it, which means if you're driving, you're in traffic, you're going to office. I mean, every now and then you feel tempted. You may or may not do it, and
To
obviously,
abuse-
I'm pretty sure you don't do it.
To abuse?
Yeah, something like that.
With the windows up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But over a period of time, I've also realized that,
Yeah.
you've got to choose peace, and
Uh-huh.
you've got to choose calm, and you've got to you choose less battles to fight. I think
Okay.
So now if I'm stuck in traffic, unless somebody is just being obnoxious and kind of
Really in your face.
Yeah, really in your face.
Yeah.
Forget it.
All right.
It's not worth your time.
Right. So instead of being a nuisance for you, I mean, it's
Yeah, but-
made
but
you a bit of a
yes,
monk.
Yeah.
Put you in a bit of a monk mode.
Yeah, but I've definitely abused in my life. Let's go like that. Let's see.
All right, I'm not going to ask you but any more questions along those lines because we know what this is going
What that
to
means.
devolve into.
Yeah.
So since you were in Delhi pretty much all your life, Delhi University was an obvious choice, would you say?
Yes,
Or was it for
yes.
a particular reason that you...
No, it was an obvious choice. It
Uh-huh.
it was affordable. It was prestigious. It was somewhere where my mother had studied there, my uncles had studied there, and yes, it was an obvious choice. Yeah.
Right. So you were in KMC
I was in
in the
Corona,
90s.
yes.
And how was KMC back then? How was the campus?
Oh, phenomenal, man! I can't even begin to describe. Like, I was in Kirorimal at a time
Uh-huh.
when we used to hang around the auditorium a lot, and just behind the auditorium was the debating society.
I was obviously in the college next door.
Yes, you were in
A couple of decades after. I mean,
Yeah.
not a couple, a decade and a half maybe.
So actually several things.
Yeah.
First, if you went to any North Campus college,
Right.
one cool thing, and I think you'll agree, is
Yeah.
you may be studying in Hansraj or KMC or Stephens or Hindu or wherever,
Yeah.
but you get the ability to always be part of this massive ecosystem of 8,
Yes.
10 colleges.
Yes.
Right. It did not matter. You would one day you'll be having breakfast in D school and then going for class and then coming to
Yeah.
Stephens for a cutlet to coming to
Yeah.
somewhere else for a samosa or
Yes.
bhelpuri at Patel Chest.
Yes.
It was like a
Yeah.
one amorphous sort of
Completely agree. And that's
that-
one great thing about campus.
That also meant that you had friends who were not just doing your course. You had friends who were doing history and Hindi and physics and statistics and math and geography,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But in Kirorimal especially, the music society at that time, Parikrama
Yes.
is there.
Yes.
Amit Kilam, who is an Indian Ocean.
Indian Ocean, yes.
Today,
Yes.
Amit is 1 year senior to me.
Right.
KK is a few years more senior. You've got the theatre society, which is like so vibrant.
I think
Players-
Palastine
players.
was in Hansraj at that point in
That's
time.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. So all of this is happening right there.
Yeah.
So it was just phenomenal to be surrounded by so much talent, to be surrounded by so much exposure to different things, and it was just fabulous. Arnab Goswami, Arnab was
Right.
in Hindu.
Yeah.
He was passing out of the year that I was joining in. The first time I met Arnab was at his Hindu college hostel, for instance.
Right.
So I think
Sometimes I feel North Campus, I mean Delhi University North Campus.
many of your current journalist colleagues were all students around the same
yes,
time.
Yes. So sometimes it feels like it's a small universe, small little India in itself.
Yes, it is.
And as you grow in your career,
Yeah.
it expands into, I mean, wherever you go, you meet.
Absolutely. And at that time, I'd say the variety of political discourse, the variety of cultural discourse, different regional backgrounds that people came from. If you were willing to absorb,
Yeah.
you could absorb. I had friends who were Manipuri. I had friends who were from Darjeeling. I had friends who were from Bihar. I had friends who were, it was just fantastic. It was fantastic, and there was a lot of healthy debate.
Yeah.
And I think it was Atal Bihari Vajpayee who once said that we are political adversaries. We are not political enemies.
Enemies.
Right?
Yes, that was in the parliament.
Right. So it was like that. So just because आप मेरे से disagree करते हैं, it does not mean that you become a bad person. You just have different points of opinion, and I think very, very blessed to be there.
Were you also sort of, because you're talking about campus politics, were you also actively involved?
I
in your
didn't
days?
stand for elections, but actually, yes, very much involved, and that which is great.
Yeah, debating societies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So because when the elections would happen, the cultural societies played a big role in it, and so which was very healthy, I think.
Right. And then, of course, law faculty, or as we call it, law fac.
Law fac, yeah.
Right. So then law fac. So law after history was because you were interested in law, like one of the things that you were curious about?
I was studying to do a MBA.
Uh-huh.
I had to do something in that 1 year.
Right.
Because so I just happened to get up and go and write the law entrance exams.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Akash, he was driving and I was sitting next to him,
Yeah.
and we went to the exam center, and I remember this memory.
Yeah.
There is this guidebook, entrance guidebook.
Yeah.
We're driving to the exam,
Uh-huh.
and I'm tearing off the wrapping on the transparent wrapping around the book to see here what is the exam on?
Yeah.
Like,
What are they gonna ask?
What are they gonna ask?
Yeah.
But got
And I think
lucky.
they asked some
Got-
general English,
yeah.
some English, some
Yeah,
general
correct,
awareness,
correct.
that kind of
And which I
stuff.
did not know. So got lucky that we got through Campus Law Center.
Right. And right after that, of course.
But the pivotal thing was that, my first job was as an intern and then executive assistant to Mr. Jyoti Sagar,
Right.
the founder, managing partner of J. Sagar Associates.
Yeah.
And I think that was another just incredible fortune that I got that opportunity to intern with JSA and the intellectual property firm at that time, KNS Partners. So that kind of strengthened my interest in law, and therefore I decided to continue to be a lawyer as opposed to the traditional safe route of doing an MBA.
Right. Before I start to talk to you about a little more about family, kids, because of course you're raising two of them.
Yes.
Two Gen Z kids.
Yes.
And that's a task in itself, of course, a very complicated one, I'm sure. I wanted to get the rapid fire out of the way.
Yeah.
So one mistake, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise.
I can think of many mistakes, by the way, a long list of mistakes. But the one of the early ones was that I was interning at the intellectual property law firm that I was at, and this is literally the first few months. And after the first couple of months, I was just distracted, and I was constantly on the phone and this, that, and the other, and obviously I did well in the first 2 months. That's why I got the extension of the internship. But the moment I got that, I got complacent, and I'm 21 years old at that time.
Yeah.
And my then boss, RK,
Yeah.
Mr. Rajinder Kumar, RK called me one day and just sat me down, and he's like, "What are you doing?" So I'm like, what do you mean? And he just sort of said, "Look, you've got the opportunity of a lifetime, and if you do this, you're going to squander it."
Right.
And I still remember that. That was from like whatever it was, like 26, 27 years ago. And that kind of, every time I'm slipping into that complacency mode, I have that sort of fear of screwing it up, and sort of, gets me motivated.
Right. So now that you've spoken about a mistake which turned out to be a blessing in disguise, let's talk about a mistake which remains a mistake. Maybe you regret.
I think, look, I hope it doesn't remain a mistake. But when you're building your career early on, there is this thing that people talk about, that there should be a work-life balance. And that they say that because there is an imbalance, right? You are working much more, and than the amount of time that you're spending around your loved ones and all your other commitments. I would have made the same mistake. Uske baad, what happens is you start to create a balance, right? But actually, I think even that is wrong.
Okay.
What you have to really try to do is harmony between the two. What I mean by that is, harmony is when you realize that these two things, your life, your who you are as a person, and the responsibilities of work are intertwined, right? So I have learned from those mistakes to try to be a better version of who I was than who I was before, and therefore now a little bit more focused around what the role that I have to play in the life of my children, and so on and so forth. So I think that is something that I would say is a learning, so that one does not constantly think that, okay, I've got to be quote unquote successful, and then I'm going to make time for loved ones, or make time for things that I'm passionate about.
You think that's a trap?
For sure, absolutely, because life happens while you're busy making plans.
Yeah.
So one has to be able to maximize it, right?
Yeah.
One has to be, if you have a passion, if you have a hobby, if you have a bucket list, if there is someone that you want to talk to, go do it. What are you waiting for?
Right. You just recently started skiing, right? It was probably one of the things on your bucket list.
Yeah, but now been 3 years.
Okay.
Go. Yes, but it's fairly recent.
Are you good enough to show off a few moves on the slopes now?
Just about, yeah.
Just about?
Yeah.
And does your daughter get to...
Daughter's better. My daughter's better. But yeah, even last winter, we were the first to open up the phase 1 slope in Gulmarg.
Right.
So yeah, we'll be there again in a month's time.
I've been to Gulmarg, and I've just seen people skiing from a distance, because obviously we were not
I
there
still,
to ski. We were
there
going
are, of course, people who are much better than us, than me. So this year maybe phase 2.
Right.
That's the
And,
target.
and what's the next thing on your list of things to do? Is there something that is in the back of your head right now?
Oh, that's a long list.
Oh, yeah?
We don't have that much time, but yeah, that's a very, very long list. Trying to learn the piano, do skydiving, acting in a movie maybe.
That said, moving on to the next question. Your favorite international airline? And I'm making it international because, I mean, of course, we all know your bias, but at the same time, we also know the kind of dharam sankat you'd be in because, I mean, now you're with Akasa, of course, but because of the way you sort of, literally build Indigo from ground up. So, yes.
Well, again, different things in different airlines. I think the network and the consistency of Emirates, the sharpness of Qatar Airways, the process and just the thoughtfulness that goes behind Singapore Airlines, but even the turnaround stories, Delta Airlines, Turkish Airlines. So I think there is something that I learn a lot from, because also we're from the same business. So when you go to a hotel, when you go to another airline, you pick up so many things to copy, and if it's the world's best and if it's something that you appreciate, then give credit and shamelessly copy, I think. Yeah.
Great artist, as Steve Jobs would have used to say it.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Next question. Somebody you couldn't give a call at 2 in the night. I'm sure there are a lot of people who will be happy to get a call from you at 2 in the night, and a lot of people who will probably feel that the world has probably something's wrong with the world because the boss is calling, the big boss is calling at 2 a.m. But who you end up calling invariably if you need some help or if you need to discuss?
I'm actually, to be honest, I could name so many people, and I say that with a lot of gratefulness, because there'll be a lot of people that I'll be able to call, young and old, senior or junior, who will absolutely pick up my phone,
Right.
and would absolutely go out of their way. And so whether it is colleagues, whether it's teams around me, friends, I'm blessed in that sense. I can actually think of a lot of people that I could call, and they will definitely pick up my phone.
Right.
There's one colleague of mine.
Yeah.
She puts everything on quiet mode, but apparently she has some way of having only my number. So she's like, I won't even pick up my parents' call, but I will pick up yours. Yeah.
So I can only imagine the amount of work you must have put in as a leader throughout your career to have people like that.
But I enjoy it. I enjoy it because coming to work in a happy place, building relationships with colleagues, at work, where you are able to really have each other's back, and at the same time be able to have difficult conversations when things are not going right or things are not going well, or when somebody is going through something which is deeply personal or even otherwise, and they can reach out to you. I think that's what makes it.
Yeah.
That's what makes it fun. That's what makes it worth coming to work every day.
And your second favorite mode of travel, because we obviously know the first one's got to be, the airplanes. But your second favorite mode of travel?
Well, as much as I drive around and I'm in cars, but I really am fascinated by trains.
I see.
And so one of the bucket list things is I just haven't been in a overnight train journey in India for a long period of time.
Okay.
And that's something I definitely want to do in the not too distant future.
Right.
I used to do so much of it as a child, as a kid.
Uh-huh.
We used to go for summer vacations, and we would go from Delhi to Kolkata,
Right.
or Delhi to Asansol, and then Asansol to Kolkata a lot because of family, or for holidays here or there.
Mm-hmm.
So an overnight train journey in India is something that I definitely want to do.
All right.
Yeah.
Overnight train journey. Interesting. Another thing which I would like to take a look at.
Because it's बहुत मजा है. Because it's like a movie. The scene changes.
Uh-huh.
You get into get into the train.
Yeah.
You look out of the window. You have a certain landscape, certain kind of food, फिर that train will stop in the middle of the night somewhere.
Yeah.
वहाँ से that local platform पे आप उतरेंगे तो there'll be some particular sound, smell, food, puri, aloo, this, that.
Yeah.
Then you wake up in the morning, the landscape has changed.
Yeah.
You know, it has become more green, it has palm trees. So it's like a movie. It's like a movie.
Yeah. Completely agree. That's it. I mean, one thing which I would like to take a look at is your passport, because I'm sure, I mean, the number of stamps on it in and out of India, I mean, the number of countries that you've traveled to, would you remember? Would you know?
I don't.
Never bothered to count?
You know,
You had already traveled to too many too soon?
One day my kids and I, we were trying to do it, but like I think, no, we should do it, but it'll be a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
But there are so many other places.
All right. So what's your favorite vacation spot though? With kids, or perhaps when you're taking a break from work?
I think Rishikesh. Next to the river, and so Rishikesh has to be some place which is my natural default. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Right next to the river.
Okay.
Yeah. I love the mountains a lot, and there are many places around the world which are very interesting. But if you're like, okay, if there was a quick decision to make and you had quick 2 days, I think Rishikesh.
Rishikesh and back.
Yeah.
And thankfully it's not very far away from
exactly from Delhi. Yeah.
All right. Another thing which you are interested in is, of course, music, and that's thanks to your parents in part.
And friends, yes,
and
absolutely.
friends. So, if you had to pick up a singer or a band, and then
I am biased.
Yeah.
Kaushiki Chatterjee, Shreya Ghoshal,
Right.
Shantanu Moitra, Swanand Kirkare.
But all great musicians, biased as you might be.
Yeah.
All right. And now these are some of the things which are happening on which, if you'd like to sort of, share a few of your comments with us.
Yeah.
Some of them have to do with the kind of changes which are happening in the aviation industry. For example, I mean, I attribute a lot of Gurgaon's growth to the fact that it is so close to the airport. Now another huge one is coming up in Jewar.
Yes.
And what do you think that's going to do to Noida's landscape, and of course in general about the expansion which is happening in the aviation industry?
Well, look, the biggest thing is that I think it's going to further democratize air travel in India, which I am a big fan of.
Right.
And I think that basically will mean that a lot more people will be able to easily access air travel, will be able to access opportunities in other parts of the world, in other parts of the country. Travel will become more affordable, travel will become more convenient. So definitely that. And like you said, an entire ecosystem gets built around it. It's not just one airport or one airline. There are other jobs, there are services that open up, there are hotels that open up, there are restaurants that open up, roads get built, homes get built. There's an entire ecosystem that develops, learning academies, simulator facilities. So I think definitely these are just like the highways were for reasons of the rapid development of the United States in the 20th century, in the early 20th century. I think airports and air travel could be that for India in the 21st century.
All right. And this question I want to ask you because Mr. Narayan Murthy has been talking about the way India should work going forward if we want to compete with China or perhaps be as good as China. And he has talked about, of course, 70-hour work weeks. Then most recently, while talking to Anand Kamath from Zerodha, he also spoke about that as far as the infrastructure industry is concerned, the work should happen in 3 shifts, so on and so forth. What's your opinion? I mean, what's your typical day like? How many hours in a day do you work for? And
well, look, I don't think that work can be defined by the number of hours. I mean, the work or the quality of work can be measured by number of hours.
Right.
I have seen people who put in 100-hour weeks. I have seen people who put in 50-hour weeks. But if there is honesty of purpose, and if you put your heart and soul into it, the outcome that comes out of it and the way you get to that outcome, both are of very high quality. Right. I've seen in India people stretch themselves. My colleagues stretch themselves far above and beyond what their contract says. But why do they do that? They do that because their passion and motivation comes from within. when people fly on an Akasa airplane and or and they experience the consistency, or even in my previous role, please remember there are no cameras on board. Nobody is watching.
Right.
But then why do these frontline colleagues, these tens of thousands of people who have made me look good for so many years, why do they put in that effort? Because their passion and motivation comes from within. It's not because somebody tells them to work 30 hours or 70 hours or 100 hours.
Right.
Because they understand or they believe that they have something to do with that larger purpose. Once you're able to tie people with that larger purpose, then people stretch themselves.
Right.
And and when I say this, I must also say that if I am putting in X number of hours, please remember that I also put in an hour and a half in trying to work out every morning, or I try to play with the dogs, or try to drop my children to the school, or hang out with friends, or watch a movie, and I don't feel guilty about it, and I don't think anybody should be made to feel guilty about it, right? You may be working as a techie somewhere in a unicorn in India, and if you like writing poetry, please write poetry and publish that poetry, right? If you have learned anything from the Rabindranath Tagore's of the world and the Gandhis of the world and the Da Vinci's of the world, is that these are all multidimensional personalities. Human beings are meant to be multidimensional personalities. So I think the debate should be, how do people maximize their true potential, their true ability? And part of it will be by working harder and working with a lot more honesty and integrity, with work ethic and pursuing excellence. And the other part of it will be to discover new things in yourself,
Right.
which you'll be like, oh, I didn't know that I was so good at this.
And the note that I want to end this interview on is by talking to you about the one constant in your life, at least for the last 17, 18 years. And that's, of course, your kids. Raising two Gen Z kids, what's that like? A son and a daughter.
Well, huge credit to their mother for one. And the second thing is that, I think it's been such a learning experience and a pleasant experience to see how mature these kids are, how tolerant these kids are, how liberal they are in their thinking and accepting different ideas. When they disagree with me, or they will disagree with logic, if they have a matter of opinion, then they have thought through it, and they'll have 5 reasons why they have come to a certain conclusion and a certain opinion. I think that has been a phenomenal thing to look at. That doesn't mean that I'm not constantly complaining that you're not going to bed at night at the right time, or you're not eating the right things, or go for a bath and comb your hair, or make your bed, or whatever it is, which my mother also did with me.
Right.
So I think that is not going to change. Yeah. But I think it's a pleasure to see that in this world where there are so many bad distractions, for them to be able to make choices which are good for them,
Right.
is I hope what they continue to do, and that's been the biggest learning experience.
You think your parenting style is closer to what your father's parenting style was, or is it any different?
Oh no, I think my parents were much better parents than I ever have been or can be. And I remember once, some years back, I think I was scolding my children, right? And everything was over, and then a few hours later, my father, who was hearing this and observing this, sent me an email.
Okay.
And counseling me that how, in a nutshell, that just, instead of scolding, sit with them and talk to them, and so on and so forth. And I actually copy pasted that Instagram, that email, and I posted it on Instagram, saying this is what my father said to me, as a lesson to how to parent my children. So I think my parents were just phenomenal parents. I mean, they were not helicopter parents. They allowed us to do what we wanted to do. They only wanted us to be good people. It wasn't about coming first in class. It was more about being a good person and leading by example. And I think that is incredible. If as a parent you can lead by example, which my parents did. I mean, that's really, that's pretty phenomenal. That's next level.
All right. On that note, great talking to you, Mr. Ghosh. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for taking all the time.
No, it's been such fun. It was a great drive.
I tried covering as many things as I could have in the amount of time that we had, but I always knew
And I hope
I would run out of time before I. No, you absolutely did. You were a great guest, but like I said, I knew even before starting that I would run out of breath, I would run out of time, but the number of things that we can talk about, well.
Thank you very much.